order the May 14th, 2024 business meeting of Simpsonville City Council. City Clerk Clark, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Councilmember O'Rear.
Here.
Councilmember Roop.
Here.
Councilmember Williams.
Here.
Councilmember O'Shea.
Here.
Councilmember Pinkerton.
Here.
Councilmember Hutchings.
Here.
Mayor Shoemaker.
Here. Please rise as you are able and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Each member of council has received a copy of our minutes from April 9th, 2024. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, if there's no objection, the minutes will stand approved as written. We have come to that time for citizen comments, so the first person who has signed up to speak is Mr. Rodeffer.
My name is Rodeffer. Is this mic on?
John,
John, can you help him with that?
Push the button?
Yeah.
Speaking now? Okay.
There we go. Thank you.
All right. My name is Rodeffer. I live at 18 Cloverfield Drive, Simpsonville, 29680. That's in the cottages at Harrison Bridge. I want to talk about the Simpsonville 2040 Comprehensive Plan. The Simpsonville 2040 Comprehensive Plan designates proposed sidewalks on Harrison Bridge Road between Target and Hibbs Road. This is on map 8.2. I just want to remind the council to make sure that developments on this part of Harrison Bridge should include the sidewalks to be consistent with the plan. There are some places that were built there before the plan was done that don't have the sidewalks. Map 8.1 designates Harrison Bridge between Fairview and Neely Ferry for a road improvement and the intersection with Fairview and Hitch Road for intersection improvement. This is important because when a traffic impact study is conducted on any proposed development in that area, the study needs to include that entire stretch at a minimum as part of the expected area to be included in the plan. It's also important because developers need to plan on the state using eminent domain to take away part of their land to expand Harrison Bridge to 3 or more lanes sometime in the future. So developments need to plan on larger setbacks and may lose parking space and signage if they don't plan ahead. It's worth noting to me, at least, that the South Carolina Department of Transportation requirements in a traffic impact study are just minimally adequate acceptable solutions. This is like telling your children that you only expect them to make a grade D on their report cards. They don't have to try to be average with a C or above average with a B or excellent with an A. You're willing to accept the minimum to get a passing grade. It's the same with the improvements developers propose. The city's telling them that the minimum is all they're being asked to do. I think City Council has the authority and responsibility to enforce stricter, higher quality standards on road improvements and neighborhood infrastructure. The city knows more about developments that are going to be expected in those areas. When we start using this authority and expect higher standards, we can start gaining control of the expanding growth and make Simpsonville's traffic better instead of settling for minimally adequate. I've seen places where it's obvious the initial road improvements were approved with the minimum standards that were outgrown, creating traffic problems and making it more difficult and more expensive to fix later on. We should have the foresight to expect it to be outgrown and require a more long-term solution and get the job done right the first time. The plan was approved in December 8, 2020. There are several strategies where the initial actions are due to be completed by now. There's listed on page 8.10. It'd be really nice if the results of these actions were available on the city's webpage along with any other updates to the plan. It's really an excellent plan. I know a lot of work went into it. We should keep it up to date. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Mark Rodeffer.
My name is Mark Rodeffer. I live at 13 Southern Oaks Court.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. At the workshop meeting, I expressed an opinion and a disagreement about TX 2024-01, which didn't seem to be very popular, but I came back to ask you to consider a change. I'd like you to consider changing the requirement to overrule the Planning Commission's recommendation to require one more vote than a simple majority. I agree that the current wording in that zoning is cumbersome in the what-if scenarios if there's less than 5 votes available. However, I disagree that the bar to overrule or to rule with the Planning Commission should be the same. That's just a fundamental difference, and that's probably where our difference of opinion lies. But what I've asked you to consider that would require 5 votes if you had 7 or 6 votes available, and 4 if you had 5 or 4 votes available. And I don't go any further than that because, quite frankly, if you only have 2 or 3 votes available, a quorum of 4, then perhaps we should use a motion to table for the next time so more people can be represented. But regardless of what the body passes, I'd just like to comment on the comments that I'm hearing and reading about the Planning Commission having more power than council and not being able to do stuff and whatever. It's a recommendation body. Like, nothing becomes annexed or rezoned or into law until council votes on it on a first reading and a second reading. So if you're feeling that way, then perhaps it's more of your own council body itself and not being on agreement or whatever. But just the comments just didn't really resonate with me about, well, the Planning Commission has their power and they're getting their way. They really don't, because nothing is enacted into law until those 2 readings. Thank you, and I hope you consider it.
Thank you. Moving on to business, item 6A, reading of second reading of Z-2024-02, proposed rezoning of property located at 504 Boyd Avenue. Mr. Derby, would you summarize for us, please?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Council, Mayor, thank you. Mr. Mayor, do you mind pushing?
All right, hold on here. There you go. It's the only one I have, John.
That's it. I'm sorry, it needs to go back. This is not connected. There we go. Apologize, there's some issues with our screen. Our screen last week, so I had to do some modifications to this. So on your screen is 504. This is the second reading of this request. The current zoning is industrial. The applicant has it rezoned to business general. They are in the process of doing some modification on the inside to bring a new kind of facelift to the current use of a salon. Nothing has changed since the first reading on April 9th. And I can answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Derby. A motion is in order. Councilmember Roche.
Mayor, I move that council approve the second reading of Z 2024-02, proposed rezoning of property located at 504 Boyd Avenue.
I have a motion from Councilmember Roche with a second from Councilmember Hutchings. Discussion? Councilmember Roche.
I believe the request for rezoning is in order with everything around it. I see it's surrounded by business general and some residential, so I don't see any reason that we shouldn't. And that's it.
Councilmember Pinkerton.
Yes, sir, thank you. I brought this up at the last meeting, and I just want to point out that as a BI at the moment, I don't think that the property complies because of fencing that's not available. And under BG, if I read this correctly, it says, administrative officers for construction services shall be permitted by right within ROI, BL, BG, and BU. The storage of materials and other vehicles is prohibited. I still can't get over the idea that it's not in compliance even as a BI at this moment. Does anybody have a chance to look at that other than me?
I did.
There's fencing required, and there's, you can't see it from that picture. If you were to go left, there's no screening at all. It can be screened by a wooden fence, block, or trees if allowed by you, but none of that's in place. So I've just had a concern about this one. It doesn't comply as it is, and we're changing it to something else, and then it becomes legal, non-conforming. That's my comment.
Councilmember Roche.
So question to follow Mr. Peterson's concern. If it becomes business general, will any fencing or screening be required?
If he was to expand the site as is, continue to operate as is today, any changes to the site, increasing of the use, that's what we would, look at the zoning, any issues with the property, bring it to the forefront that way.
What would the fencing do? What is it supposed to accomplish?
Screening the material, and we also did that in the industrial or in the commercial construction area as vehicles, as sometimes with use as materials. So storage vehicles have to be screened. Not say it has to be lumber, metal, pipe, like that. The vehicle is considered part of the material.
Councilmember O'Hare.
Maybe I'm a little confused on that. So the fence and screening won't be necessary if it were to change to BG. So does that mean it's supposed to be there right now when it's BI?
BI does have screening, but a higher screening requirement, above 7 feet, 8 feet max. That's what they have right now. You can see in the back, they have an 8-foot privacy fence per the BI requirement.
So it should be in place for the rest of the property at this point.
Just the portion that they're occupied, which should be the back portion of there. The front portion on the left, that's the hair salon location.
It is BI also right now. Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. But they should have any outdoor storage being a hair salon.
Well, I mean, I guess the outdoor storage would be all the cars parked around back and everything from the radon business that we figured out by driving by there. So that would be, I think, a reason to have a screen if you're going to put a bunch of vehicles back there too. So, but this one's been kind of a conundrum for me because I've never really gotten an answer as to how the salon business survived the first rezone, or it was allowed to rezone while it was already there. I've never really understood that. If it was BG and the salon was already there and you moved it to BI, then it was all automatically out of compliance. But if it was moved to BI already and then you allow for the salon in there, then it's out of compliance. So one way or the other, that business has been out of compliance and it's an entire existence. So I've never understood how we got that way and really, if they're allowed to run it like it's zoned now, why are we even asking for a rezone? I don't really have a problem with the rezone. I've just never really understood how we got here. And that's what's been, and I don't even know if there's straight answers for it at this point, but it just doesn't make any sense. But thanks for answering.
Just kind of piggyback off that, a lot of properties we have that are single family now homes that get rezoned to business general for commercial uses. They can continue as is. You're changing zoning, which we don't allow single family, for example. As long as they continuously operate there, don't abandon that use, it continues. The hope is for future change.
Councilmember Root.
Basically, what this has been out of compliance, we feel. We got some no's at the last business meeting not to pass this. I voted yes just because I want to get it right. In your opinion, this should be business general. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we can ask 1,001 questions why this wasn't, why this was this, when it became, and get lost in the weeds. The point is, it's going to be in compliance. We as a city have the right to make sure that these things are zoned correctly. And just a matter of a point, whether he moves into the salon or not, he has a business license for the salon, correct, for this location?
Yes, sir.
Nowhere on a business license is CA. He has to operate the business, so we get in the weeds again there as well. So the way I see it is this puts it in business general. I think that's where it should be. And I'll I guess I'll just stop there. Common sense, this should be business general. Whether we caught it again or not, it's a different conversation, but I'll stick with making this business general, and then hopefully we don't see this come up again. If he builds, he's gotta come back and rezone, right? If he changes his mind, wants to build on it again.
If you wanted to occupy it as an industrial use, it would not be allowed. Staff would permit that, so if his ambitions were to go industrial, it would have to be going back to industrial.
All right, so let me ask you this as a backup question. Just say for argument's sake, he comes back in a year and says, hey, that plan that I once had, I want to build on this property, I want to make it back to BI. What do we have in place as a city to make sure that he's indeed going to do that, so we don't get caught up? And I'm not saying this would happen at this property, but just in general, what do we have in place as a city to make sure when they are changing these zones that we are checking back with them, making sure that they're at least progressing and doing these things so we don't get caught up in this again?
We don't have anything in place that requires them to build what they propose. They just can't go outside the zoning.
But if they're asking for a BI strictly to build, and they never build, we, as a council, pass it to BI in good faith that he's going to build, and he never does, then that should be on him to be fined being out of zone. The planning commission would vote, we would vote, and then if he doesn't build as he did this last time, then the property owner should be in violation. It should go to an automatic back to a BG, and the business owner should be fined. There should be some type of follow-up is my point. I don't think you can answer that, but I'm posing that there should be something in place where they're coming, filling out paperwork every 3 months of their progress, having on-site stop-ins or something to make sure when people are changing their zone, especially on a build, industrial build, that we're checking up on those and making sure that that's being done. That's all. Thank you.
That's all. Councilmember Hutchins.
Can we go back to the overhead view of the property? That one. I'm a little confused about the privacy, the barriers there. Are we talking about the upper right corner or the lower left corner? Where screening was needed or should have been put there?
I think they're referring to this side over here, they can see, because the fence should be right that way going up, right to there. I think the portion that they're referring to is in the bottom left.
And you're saying under the current zoning that should have been there, is that should have been screened there?
They're adding material relates to the use, yes, sir.
But under the, if we change this to the business general, then there won't be any requirement for that. Is that right?
No, whatever zoning goes there, whatever use goes there has to comply moving forward. When you have a change, again, you have to non-conforming, it gets changed over, it stays as is. The improvements, we look at the zoning and make sure it complies.
Councilmember Pinkerton.
Yes, just to lay out what was just said, and I've repeated it before, but if it changes to BG, it says the storage of materials and or vehicles is prohibited. And you're correct, there's no fence on the left side. You can see all the vehicles there. So what I'm hearing is regardless if you change it to BG, they're just non-conforming.
Correct.
Mr. Root brought up something that, and I might have to have counsel remind me what the term is, but if a property, we actually discussed this, if a property asks for a zoning variance, they have a right for up to 2 years to hold that zoning issue as sort of our checks and balances. Is that correct?
For approved plans.
Approved plans, okay. So if he has a plan to do something with this property, he has essentially 2 years in order to get that work done, where it goes back to council. Is that the way I read it?
No.
You're referring to the vested right.
Right, vested rights. I'm sorry, I forgot that term.
Yeah.
No, the plan just doesn't go forward. They would have to resubmit. We've had that before with projects, just the economy goes down, they don't have the funding to build the apartment. Back in front of us to resubmit just in case of zoning changes, zoning amendments, they don't comply with the new stuff, so. Zoning stays the same, just the project that got approved, no longer is approved.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Russell? On the motion to approve second reading of Z-2024-02, proposed rezoning of property located at 504 Boyd Avenue, I'm going to request the city clerk do a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember O'Rear,
Yes.
Councilmember Root,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Councilmember Roche,
Yes.
Councilmember Pinkerton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hutchings,
Yes.
Mayor Shoemaker.
Yes. Thank you. Oops. Next item is 6B, SP-2024-05, Harrison Park ID major change. Mr. Derby, will you summarize, please?
Yes, sir. This is a major change to the Harrison Park ID. Sorry. Oh, there it is. This is out front of the cottage in the Harrison Bridge. What they're looking to do is amend their statement of intent. The current requirement or limit is 15,000 square feet for a single commercial building. They are proposing a daycare facility here that does exceed that. Their typical footprint is bigger than 15,000. So they're looking to amend the statement of intent to allow it not to exceed 16,000. On your screen is the daycare facility. To the left is a future pediatric medical facility. This will allow cross-access. This doesn't require a second reading, just an approval for this major change. Nothing has changed since the committee of the whole meeting on April 23rd. I can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. The motion is in order. Councilmember Hutchings.
Mayor Council, make a motion to approve SP-2024-05 Harrison Park ID major change.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Hutchings with a second from Councilmember Pinkerton. Discussion? Councilmember Hutchings.
This building is the only thing that will be affected by this, right? This Goddard School building, the other buildings will still be under the less than 15,000 square foot requirement.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have.
Councilmember Pinkerton.
On this particular one and surrounding properties, we've heard from citizens very concerned about the traffic. I don't think that it's going to make it any better for traffic here because kids, when people start delivering their children to the school, it's going to create a backup. But going forward, if this has basically been approved and all we're doing is changing the size of the building, I agree that in the future in this particular area, we need to be very concerned about future growth without investment from the DOT, the council, or the county, and us to make sure that we're avoiding huge traffic jams over there.
Councilmember Root.
Can you remind me again when this was approved? The original plans were approved?
It came through, I think, 2009. It got annexed from something to the city. 2012 from 16, it came back for updates, 17, 18, greater changes. So it's been going on for quite a bit.
Can you speak to the gentleman who spoke tonight? I believe he lives in the subdivision behind there, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't get to jot the address down, but can you speak to his concern with sidewalks and these, the original plans? I don't know if how many times you said they come back to us, but can you speak to that time?
Yes, sure, I can bring the plan back up, but the original plan did not call for sidewalks. Only, that's kind of the dark line you see along the roads, that's the sidewalk they proposed on their concept plan. It leads out to Harrison Bridge Road. Nothing else was mentioned in their statement. That's it. The ID district allows for flexibility. They are kind of bound to what's on that plan in that document. So in this particular case, they probably opted out of putting the sidewalk out there when we got approved. Or feasibility of anything being connected in that time. But it's kind of hard to ask for something that wasn't already approved during council times of what they saw would be beneficial in that area at that time.
Yeah, and typically, even the council before, the one I was on, aggressively asked developers to do these type of things. Back in 2009, things looked pretty different. That's probably why the council didn't request that at that time. So that's something that obviously we can't just go back and say, well, we'll approve this if you add sidewalks. That's already gone. So I did want to bring that to the public's attention that if this was coming before council now, that's something that we would obviously probably have negotiated, and even more so for stipulated on what we can. So here, basically, they're just moving an extra 600 square feet in. Is that correct? All right, thank you.
Councilmember Weir.
Yeah, kind of piggyback on what Councilmember Pinkerton said. I think the current speaker today, I think he mentioned it last meeting, is the cumulative effect of what's going on in Harrison Bridge. But I drove by there today, and of course, traffic's traffic over there, and this is probably one of those. They're going to generate traffic a couple of times a day, not continual. If that was a bunch of houses like you see already. So the biggest thing is for future planning is the cumulative effect, unless DOT or the other developments that have already been approved make the improvements to the infrastructure on Harrison Bridge. So we just need to be careful for that in the future.
Councilmember Hutchins.
How far along are they on the build out of the residential portion of this development?
I'll have to check, but I think they're the last couple of houses we see. We have not done a final walkthrough for the phase, because they are private roads, we still inspect them. That's not occurred.
Council. On the motion to approve SP-2024-05 Harrison Park ID major change, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed signify by saying no. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. Item 6C, first reading of Z-2024-03, proposed rezoning to ID, property located on West Georgia Road. Mr. Derby, will you summarize, please?
Thanks, sir. Council on your screen is the next item. This is on West Georgia Road, close to East Hating Springs. Current zoning is VG. The applicants are petitioning for rezoning these properties for the purpose of ID. They want to establish an indoor storage facility with traditional roll-up storage facilities in the back. They are producing a retail portion. You see on the bottom of the screen, this will have charging stations. They are asking to put in some Amazon pickup drop areas in the storage facility. They are having to bring sewer to this location from the intersection. They are bringing that to the property line to help with future growth. They are doing above average facade, which is kind of indicative of the ID district. Nothing has changed since the April 23rd meeting. They did provide some follow-up comments from the last meeting regarding stormwater. The applicants here, I'd like to kind of do a little rundown of answer that question that was brought up at the last meeting, but nothing has changed since the April 23rd meeting.
Thank you. A motion is in order. Councilmember Weir.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I would ask the council approve on first reading of Z-2024-03, proposed rezoning to ID property located at West Georgia Road.
Was there a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Root with a second from Councilmember Roche. Discussion? Councilmember Root.
Quick question. If you don't know the answer, maybe the applicant can answer. Have they gone to the county, or are they planning on going to the county asking for permission to build if the city does not approve this?
No, sir, they have not. They're in the city already. So it's just a rezoning.
But as far as they would be able to, and could they annex into the county and go and leave the city? Once they're in, okay, so
They're in the city.
they would have to keep the houses, and one of the houses is non-occupant, correct? It's sitting empty?
Correct. The one right next to Christian Brothers is single family. It's legal non-conforming. It was rezoned back in 2019, 2020 for this very purpose for future development.
And I misunderstood. We rezoned so many times. The mayor and I were trying to figure that out the other day. Is this a rezoning and a annexation? So forgive me on that. So, do you know how long that house has been vacant?
I do not.
And one other question. We said last meeting that the DOT was going to do a slowdown, but kind of a turn lane there eventually to turn at the light, correct? And this is going to be in this general area where the building is going to be?
I believe you referred to the road improvements, turn lane improvements at the
Yes.
intersection of East. So it's going to be to the west of that, about 200 yards to the west of that.
So that slowdown lane won't be in front of this particular property?
It should. What did?
I thought they said maybe it was going to start there.
Yes, the turn lane won't go past into our property, so it'd be, well, to like the John to the west. It won't extend into our property.
Okay, I didn't know if people coming in and out, that would be a help or not. I thought I remember you saying it was somewhere going to be close to your property. Okay, that's all, thank you.
Councilmember O'Rear.
Pull up the map. There you go. What's that one? Is there another one? I don't know.
Site plan or?
No, I drove by there today to answer Councilmember Root's question. It's been abandoned for, I don't think it's been like 10 years, but it looks like it's been abandoned for a few years. Are we preserving the house? That's not, okay, so I'm talking about the one that's occupied. Is it staying or is it whole? Okay, good. I thought I was confused all of a sudden. There's a lot of hardwood growth there that I hate to see go away, but you know, stuff happens. But yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. I thought I was missing something. Thanks.
Council? Councilmember Pinkerton.
So I brought up the concerns about the stormwater discharge onto the property last meeting, and I understand now that they're actually discharging less than what would naturally be discharged now by way of their retaining pond. I still have a concern about that discharge on the other people's property, but as long as they're complying and it passes the county's review of stormwater control, then my questions were answered.
Council? On the motion to approve first reading of Z-2024-03, proposed rezoning to ID property located on West Georgia Road. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed signify by saying no. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Derby, and thank you to our applicants. Item 6D, first reading of TX-2024-01, miscellaneous refinements to the zoning ordinance. Mr. Derby, will you summarize, please?
Yes, sir. Don't need the slide for this one. 735, 745, and 755C currently have a requirement to overturn a decision recommendation coming out of the Planning Commission. The current recommendation, it takes 5 council members to overturn this. The text amendment before you is to reduce that or change that to a simple majority of council. Nothing has changed since the committee of the whole.
Thank you, Mr. Derby. Motion's in order. Councilmember Pinkerton.
Mayor and Council, I'll make a motion to approve TX-2024-01 miscellaneous refinements to the zoning ordinance.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Pinkerton with a second from Councilmember Roche. Discussion? Councilmember Pinkerton.
Yeah, we've had an opportunity over the last meeting or two to hear from both sides of this issue, and I will say that I will be voting yes to pass it. I know there's been some concerns about and discussed about the various quorums you could get into, whether there's 4-member quorum and somebody recused down to 3. I think that's a rare situation, and of course we've been advised that that could be tabled. Interestingly enough, though, the planning department, or planning commission as is, could pass to council a recommendation with 3 members under the same situation, which wouldn't be a very good representation of the commission, but that is a possibility. So it's interesting that under that circumstances, they could pass something, but under our particular zoning or ordinances, we cannot unless we have 5 votes. As a councilman and a new councilman, I made a big decision to look into everything that's brought up to this table and review. I think that's a responsibility of every councilman up here. And there's various ways we can do that. Ask questions, we can go to the planning meetings, we have to get involved and do study based on the packets. In fact, I will also add that in my short time here, and even before, approaching Mr. Derby has been great. He's always been available to answer any of my questions. So I think it's important that we do that. I also took the initiative to take the 6-hour training course that's required by the Planning Commission, not required by council at all. Interestingly enough, in one of the first modules, comment was made by one of the presenters that on occasion, every once in a while, council may disagree with a planning commission's decision. And at that point, planning commission has to accept it and move on. And that's the same way with this decisions up here on this board, council. We do have to take a responsibility to understand exactly what the commission is required to give us and make good decisions based on that. We're a growing community. It's an understatement to say that. In the future, we are going to have to make decisions based on traffic, infrastructure, quality of life. You know, we're basically outpacing our infrastructure as is. And so it's incumbent on the Planning Commission to take those things in consideration as well. And then it's up to us as the deciding votes on approving those recommendations that we understand what we're going to vote for. And I think it's imperative that we change this to a simple majority vote going forward. Mayor and Council, I move the question.
Second.
I have a motion to move the previous question with a second. This is not an item that can be discussed, so we will call for the vote. And we'll have a roll call vote, please. This will cut off today. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Arrear,
Yes.
Councilmember Root,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
No.
Councilmember Roche,
Yes.
Councilmember Pinkerton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hutchings,
Yes.
Mayor Shoemaker.
No. So the motion to move the question passes by a vote of 5-2. On motion 6D, first reading of TX-2024-01, miscellaneous refinements to the zoning ordinance. I'm sorry, I'm going to call for a roll call vote again, please.
Councilmember Arrear,
Yes.
Councilmember Root,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
No.
Councilmember Roche,
Yes.
Councilmember Pinkerton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hutchings,
Yes.
Mayor Shoemaker.
No. The motion is passed by a vote of 5-2. Item 6E, first reading of fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. Administrator Gracely, will you summarize, please?
Yes, thank you. I don't know why that happened. Thank you, Mayor and Council. First of all, I'm very sorry I wasn't here with you 3 weeks ago to present the budget as I had planned. So I will be presenting to you the proposed FY25 budget this evening. Mayor, I don't know if you want me to stop at that until you have a motion on the floor, or if you want me to go into detail at this point.
Let's go ahead. I think a motion is in order. That way we can stop you as you go and not have to go back and forth. Councilmember Roche.
Mayor, I move that council approve first reading of FY 2024-2025 budget.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Roche with a second from Councilmember O'Rear. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So are you operating the screen?
Yes, okay, so I'm not working, John?
Thank
You have
you.
one up there.
Okay, good. I put this slide in the budget presentation last year, and I'm glad there are a few members of our community here, citizens, to see this, because I think it's important to note where Simpsonville is in terms of millage and comparison to the other municipalities in Greenville County. So I will point out that currently Simpsonville has the second lowest millage rate in the county. Malden is a little bit lower, but they are proposing some type of increase in their FY25 budget proposal. But just to show you not only the millage rate that we currently operate under, but the value of the mill associated with that rate. Meaning for every mill that we impose as part of the millage rate, we generate roughly $126,970 in tax revenue. You can see where the other ones are. It varies based on assessed valuation, essentially. Communities that have more manufacturing, because that's assessed at a higher percentage, tend to have a higher value on their mill. And so if you look at the value of the mill, we're essentially maybe a little bit lower than Malden, because the value of their mill is higher. So I just wanted to point that out to everybody. And does anybody have questions on that? I know, a lot of people are not familiar with how millage rates are imposed, the process for that, and how they're calculated. And I'll be happy to answer those questions if you have any.
Councilmember Roche.
If you'd like to explain all of that for the rest
I need a whiteboard for that. Definitely would need a whiteboard for that. Okay, so we will move on. I'm going the wrong direction. I also last year started putting the organizational charts as part of the budget. The reason being that, we deliver services as a municipality. That is the product that we provide. That is the value that we provide to our citizens. And so I wanted to show you, obviously, providing those services is where our resources, our tax revenues go into that. And so I wanted to show you from an organizational chart perspective with each department where those resources are going in terms of service delivery. This is the administrative department. There are a total of 14 employees. We do have the city attorney listed on there. He is on a contractual basis and under retainer to come as needed. He's autonomous in terms of, he doesn't take orders from me. He just provides legal advice to the city. But as far as the rest of it goes, you can see the organizational structure at City Hall. And again, the organizational structure with the police department. This is where we get into a larger number of employees, of course, because public safety tends to be where the majority of our resources go in terms of personnel, equipment. That's a lot of the service delivery that we provide. Public safety is always a critical service provision of any municipality. 64 total employees. 49 Class 1 officers, an animal control officer, a codes enforcement officer. The animal control and the codes enforcement are also Class 1, so we can pull them back on the road as needed. The dispatch department has 10 positions allocated. We have 1 administrative assistant, 1 property and evidence and records clerk, and then 1 victims advocate as required by state law. With the fire department, this is our largest department, 75 total employees, 6 fire stations, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory where those resources are allocated. Each station is required to have shift coverage, and there are 3 shifts to make that coverage because they work 24 hours on, 48 hours off, so that's 3 shifts per station. The Public Works Department, you can see how this structure is. Essentially, Public Works is delivering sanitation services, streets and sewer, a fleet superintendent who manages the garage, and then a facilities supervisor. Simpsonville Recreation Department, more of the same, director of athletics for youth sports, activities and facilities supervisor, which is part of the Senior and Activity Center for senior programming, the grounds supervisor for all of our park maintenance, and then our arts and events director is under recreation. So I like to give you a summary of the budget. Of course, you are provided with a detailed budget line item if you request that, but this is helping you to see the differences between the current budget that we're operating under and any changes in the proposed budget. That way you don't have to search for what those things are. And so I'll just go over these quickly. 4% cost of living increase is what I'm proposing, but also with a $1,000 bonus for every full-time employee that would be paid in the first payroll after this budget goes into effect, which would be after July 1st. The reason for that is the cost of living increase is very helpful to employees, but it's paid out over a 12-month period, over 26 pay periods. And so they don't see a very large net gain with each pay period. Cumulatively over the course of the year, they see a net gain, but as far as the impact of a new budget and any increases that council would approve, they don't see a very big difference right out of the gate. So the bonus would allow for that. In these times of unprecedented inflation, I think it's important to put more money in the hands of the people who deliver these services. As I mentioned, this is the business that we're in of providing services to our residents and businesses in Simpsonville, and these are the people who do it. The other benefit of doing a bonus in combination with the cost of living increase is once the bonus is paid, it's over. There's no cumulative effect on what will be the FY26 budget next time I present to you around this time next year. We did have a 10% increase in our health insurance renewal. We knew that was coming. We look at claims history throughout the course of the existing fiscal year that we're in, and the goal, of course, is to keep claims lower so that our premiums outpace the claims. And unfortunately, we've had some claims that were pretty high, and so those two things are running neck and neck, and when that happens, we tend to see a larger increase. The initial increase that was presented to us was 18.5%, so we were able to negotiate with our current provider, which is Blue Choice, to get that renewal number down. We went out to the market and we searched with other insurance providers to see what they would offer in terms of a new policy for us, because it would be changing. We don't like to change because there are employees who are on maintenance drugs, and different insurance carriers have different preferences in terms of those drugs. And so what ends up happening when we do have to change carriers, and we've done that once since I've been here, we were with Blue Cross Blue Shield when I came. We had an exorbitant renewal, and we went to Cigna for 2 years, and then we went back to Blue Choice, which is a different product than Blue Cross Blue Shield. And with Blue Choice, we've maintained in fact, last year we had a decrease We had no increase in the premium. We actually had a decrease. So I just want you to be aware that we do put a lot of time and effort into making sure that we are providing the best level of insurance coverage for our employees, but also balancing that with making sure that we do our research and put our census out on the market so that we're not getting the worst increase possible. And we, like I said, we were able to negotiate that down quite a bit. The next item is the $250,000 for resurfacing. That is something that we always do. That comes out of the Public Works Enterprise Fund. This year, I have put in an additional $250,000 from the general fund because I know resurfacing of roads is a critical need. And it's not always possible to have extra money to put into that, but this year it worked with the budget numbers. And I wanted to put that in there for your consideration. It does not change the amount of match that we get through the municipal match program because that's done by formula. So we're still getting the same amount there, but we're putting in the extra money. The benefit that we get from participating in the municipal match program is not only the dollars that go into it, but also that is part of a large bid that includes all the county's resurfacing and every other municipality in the county. So we get a better number than if we were to go out and seek bids on resurfacing, you know, the 7 to 10 roads that we're able to do. And so it gives us a better value for that because we get better unit pricing because it's a much larger contract. The other thing that is new this year is, you know, we've had a lot of discussions about stormwater. I still don't know what the answer is to that, but if there's no money to address it ever, then we're never going to make any progress. So I'm proposing a $250,000 transfer into what will be a stormwater capital fund that can only be used for stormwater. And because it's a transfer into now another enterprise fund, it does not require that any money unspent just goes into the general fund balance at the end of the budget year. And so even if nothing gets spent, that money will still be there in the next year and the next. So if we were able to reach some sort of solution, whatever that looks like, then we'll have some funding to help us get to that point. Whether, you know, that's not going to fund a lot. It's very expensive. And but I know we've talked about different things. We've talked about buyouts for the people most impacted by stormwater. We've talked about doing some type of stormwater planning to let us know what we need in totality. We've talked about different things. And I actually have a meeting tomorrow with a gentleman who's coming up from Columbia from the South Carolina Office of Resilience. And we're going to meet here and talk about their thresholds for how they fund projects and also the parameters for how that assistance is provided to people who are impacted, because I don't know what I don't know now. I'm not sure that any of our issues in Simpsonville would qualify for that. I'll find out more tomorrow. But I'm also going to ask him to come with us to look at the troublesome areas that you all are aware of, because we've had citizens come here and talk about those. So we're going to go out and do a little field work as well. Also, a $250,000 transfer into the capital projects fund for the heavy rescue truck. This will be the second payment, and I'm using air quotes when I say payment. We are ordering a new heavy rescue truck, and it's a 3-year turnaround because I assume, you know, all the ARPA money that got distributed around the nation, a lot of people use that money to buy fire equipment and things. And so all of the manufacturers their delivery is not as quick as it was before. So they had told us they're about a 3-year turnaround. So what I did with this, for those of you who are new to council, before we ordered the truck, I went to the county. This was probably 2 years ago now. And anything that gets spent in the fire service area is under the jurisdiction of Greenville County Council. Because they set the millage rates, they issue the bonds for anything in our fire service area. We're under contract to provide fire service, and we staff all of those stations, but only with county approval for capital and for operating. And so The heavy rescue truck is $1.5 million expense. I know that sounds crazy, but that's what it is. And so I went to the county and asked for half of that because it will service the fire service area as well. So $750,000 will be paid by the county. And then because there's a 3-year turnaround, we are transferring $250,000 a year to pay our $750,000. So when the truck is ready for delivery, we don't have to go into debt to pay for it. The money is set aside for that purpose. This is a new thing that I am proposing this year, and of course it's entirely up to council, but I'm not sure how many municipalities do it. I know that Greenville County does it with their county council members, but a council member came to me recently and was asking about, he had gotten a request from Hillcrest High School from the robotics team about the city making a donation to help them attend the competition. And I said, I don't have anything in the budget that would cover that, but it led me to think it would probably be a good idea to give council $1,000 each in discretionary funding. Meaning as long as there's a public purpose to the proposed use of that funding, you could decide if you want to fund things or not. The robotics team, I feel like, would qualify. Of course, that request is, we weren't able to accommodate it because we're in this existing current budget. But if that request comes across next year and that particular council member wanted to be able to say yes to that, they could come and say, I'd like to use X amount of my discretionary funds in order to do this. It also, you all in your budgets have a certain amount of money allocated for attendance to the municipal association. If there was another conference that you wanted to attend that's outside of, what would be your budget for travel in your recurring budget every year, you could use the discretionary funds for that. If you wanted to do a mural, a small one, if 2 or 3 of you wanted to pool your money to make that possible, you could do that. So there are a lot of examples of how you could use that money, and it is just what it says. It would be under your discretion to do that as long as there's public purpose. The Greenlink contribution of $47,000, which we have talked about previously because that needed to be approved before I could prepare the budget. Salary adjustments for public safety, police and fire. We met with the police and fire department leadership last year in the early fall, and it is imperative that we stay very competitive with surrounding agencies in order to retain and to recruit employees into our public safety. We don't want to fall behind. Those of you who have been on council for a while remember we did an adjustment back pre-COVID, not long after I came here, because the Greenville City and Greenville County had raised their minimum for a new police officer. And we were fearful that, we were not going to be able to recruit any police officers because our number was so much lower than that. So we did that adjustment. We also, in year 2, did some adjustments to the compa ratio for longevity and years of service. But post-COVID, it has to be done again because the market for jobs, for instance, if you are looking to hire a dispatcher and they could, that's a skilled position and it takes a special person to be able to do that job. It's a very difficult job. They could go to a food service and make roughly the same thing that we're currently paying with very little stress. And so we need to adjust for market issues that have come up post-COVID. And so we did a very thorough look at other departments in the area that are similarly sized. We're not comparing ourselves to Greenville City or Greenville County because we may not be able to keep up with those increases. But certainly Malden, I think we looked at Spartanburg, Greer was one, municipalities that are very similar in size and call volumes and things like that. So we have included in this budget those adjustments. And I think that's very critical. And then just to point out, one more thing that's new. When we move into the new facility, I think it's imperative that we have a professional cleaning service, a professional janitorial service come to clean those buildings and not rely on, the one staff person, the one full-time staff person that we have over at the Senior and Activity Center who takes care of that building and then part-time takes care of these buildings, including the Art Center. It would just be too much for, a full-time person and a part-time person. I think we need to have a janitorial crew that we contract out to do that for us. So those are all of the expenditures that I'm proposing. I just want to point out there is no borrowing from the fund balance. This is a balanced budget. Revenue projections and expenditures match. There is a surplus in the Public Works Enterprise Fund, and we like to have that because what will happen in the next 2 to 3 years is we're going to have to start replacing equipment. We bought those trucks when we took sanitation back in-house. And so some of those are reaching their end of life over the next 2 or 3 years. So we like to operate with a surplus in the Public Works Enterprise Fund because that basically allows money to accumulate so we don't have to borrow to purchase new equipment. The surplus in the Hospitality and Accommodations Tax Fund budget, generally year after year we have a surplus in this particular budget. We're generating more money every year in hospitality and accommodations tax because hotel stays are higher. We add new restaurants constantly. More people are staying in Simpsonville to dine. We have all of these new food halls, the food truck, Scuffletown food truck, what's about to happen down here on Main Street with another food hall concept outdoor. It's just going to continue to increase as new restaurants come online. So, our expenses don't outpace those increases. And that's a good thing. And it's working to our advantage with all of the improvements that are happening in City Park because we can use some of that fund balance to pay for that. So we didn't have to bond out all of our bonding capacity to make that project work. We're able to use some cash on hand as well. And then a surplus in the sewer fund budget. Not a very large one, but there is a small surplus in that budget. And so that brings me to the last thing, which are the capital purchases by department. And these vary year to year. And so essentially the department heads will determine what capital items they need. Some of these recur, like the 5 tough books and docks for the police department. We replace 5 a year because that keeps us at a level where all of the equipment is kept current. We generally do 2 patrol vehicles every year in the police department. That way we keep the fleet current without having to go to any kind of lease program or any kind of borrowing to purchase new vehicles. Additional body cameras because we have added personnel in the police department in the past. The property and evidence shelving for the new building, they have a much larger P&E room over there, and this is just to provide the adequate storage for the property and evidence. They have very strict protocols when it comes to how those things are handled. For the fire department, building improvements, that is just so that the older stations 1 through 4, and in some instances perhaps 5 and 6 too, as they need routine maintenance. It's a fund that allows that maintenance to occur throughout the course of the budget year. And we generally put that money in every year as well. One new vehicle, there is a vehicle that's got a lot of mileage on it that needs to be passed down, one that needs to be surplus, and then a new vehicle. And that's just a regular vehicle. That's not fire equipment, it's just regular vehicle. I already mentioned the transfer to capital projects for the heavy rescue truck. Public Works, a generator, a mini excavator, and the attachments that go with it, the curbing machine, and then Councilmember Root had asked me several months ago about connecting the sidewalk on Jonesville from a neighborhood that's in the city limits where there's no sidewalk up to the existing sidewalk on Jonesville Road. And so I had our engineer, Terry Bragg, prepare a cost estimate, and that money is currently included in the budget to do that project in the next year. The replacement of the AC machine in the Public Works garage, Public Works Enterprise Fund, we always are purchasing new cans because we have new residents being brought online every year with all of the new development we have. Parks and Recreation at Heritage Park, a utility tractor, a trailer, and a lift. And then Hospitality and Accommodations. We are in a seating lease at the amphitheater. This is just paying the next year of that seating lease. And I think this will be our final year. If not, it's definitely year 2, and then we would only have one more payment on that. City park accessories, we pulled all of that out of the general contractors because it's movable equipment, benches and trash cans essentially for city park. Once it's completed, we would be buying that out of our budget and installing. We want to see the park first before we decide how much of that we need to purchase. The landscape architects have given us an idea of where it should be placed and quantities, but we felt like maybe it was a little more than we needed, so we just pulled it out of the general contractor's contract and we're holding off to do it ourselves. The mower for City Park, a gator for City Park, because we are going to have park maintenance staff at City Park constantly. Right now, they're all out at Heritage Park. That's where they're based. But we're building a new maintenance shed at City Park, and then we will have those employees. That will be their top priority, but they'll also service the smaller parks like College Park and Alder, among others. And then you'll have the typical crew out at Heritage Park that will continue that maintenance because it requires a lot too. The sculpture shipping, I think we have mentioned that we have a sculpture that's being donated. It's a beautiful piece of art, and the only thing we're having to pay are the shipping costs to get it here. The greenways and trails, I think I listened to the audio, and I think Councilmember Pinkerton had a question about that. We work closely with UGATA, and UGATA is an acronym for a nonprofit group called Upstate Greenways and Trails Association. And they have gone to all the municipalities and they've encouraged everybody to allocate some money in each operating budget to fund greenways and trails projects. Now, this money will likely go to what we may have to do is pay for an easement to get the phase 2 of the Swamp Rabbit Trail. It just gives us fluid money on hand to do things like survey work, purchase of easements, those types of things. And of course, when we do a larger project, we would come to council and talk about a bond issue for a larger project. But this would just give us the flexibility. It's $100,000 to do, and it doesn't even have to be a large trail extension like the Swamp Rabbit Trail extension. It could be a small, we did recently, I think it was about 3 years ago, Councilman Hutchings probably remembers, we did a walking trail at Alder Park, and something like that could be funded out of this. So it just gives us a little flexibility to do greenways and trails. Maybe it would be used to plant trees along a path or a trail, or connect a neighborhood to a larger trail network, those types of things. If the money doesn't get spent, it just goes into the general fund balance at the end of the budget year. So it would go into the fund balance on hospitality and accommodations tax because that is a separate budget. But anyway, that's essentially what that is. It just gives us the option to do smaller projects or to have money available if we need to purchase an easement or something. And those, when you get an agreement from a property owner, you need to do that pretty quickly before they change their mind. Because as we've seen with this Swamp Rabbit Trail project, it has not been an easy process to acquire easements. We've had our consultant on board for quite a while, and we've been working toward it, and we've looked at an alternate route because we were having problems, and I think we're finally making some progress. It looks like we're very, very close on securing that last easement. I don't want to be overly optimistic, but anyway, we would take money out of that fund to pay for that easement. And I think that's all I need to detail. This is self-explanatory. It just shows you the percentage changes in each departmental budget. These are revenue changes, and then the next slide would show you per department where any increases or decreases have occurred. And if you have any question about what caused those things, I'll be happy to answer. But a lot of it has to do with capital purchases that were included in one budget or another that are not included this year. And then it changes the total amount budgeted for that particular department. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Grayson. Councilmember Ritter.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for not going through each slide. I appreciate the one slide there. I met several department heads, so I appreciate someone who is fiscally conservative. I think our department heads do well. I met with the police chief, and yourself, fire chief, and they can ask for a whole lot more than 2 vehicles. What happens, just so the public knows, when they see police cars, they're getting police cars here. That's because if we don't do it incrementally, then we're going to have 6 or 7 in 1 year, and then we'll see a huge problem with that year's budget. So it's good to change these out. What I gather that they do is they'll take the bad ones out and they'll pass down certain vehicles. So they're getting rid of the ones that aren't operating or costing money. And I think the police chief, for instance, does a good job of noticing which vehicles he has ordered that were in the shops a lot, kind of mud pits, and he doesn't order those again. So I think he does a good job ciphering out those that are going to last longer and maintain. So I do appreciate all of that and the hard work that you guys put in this budget together. I will say there's one thing on the budget. I'm a man of my word. I said a few months ago when we took on the Green Link for a year that I would be in favor of taking out the ZenCity. It's a $25,000 line item. It's not huge. Green Link was $47,000. Takes up about half. I personally, I don't even know if we passed Green Link. If I was going to want to approve ZenCity, it just seemed like it was worth trying a year. I don't see value in it. I would like to make a motion that we take that out of council being behind it, but everything else seems to be pretty good.
So is that a motion to remove this budget item for ZenCity?
Just ZenCity. It's itemized as a $29,000 expense. If you all will notice that on page 8, under software and support, I would be in favor of keeping the $4,000 software. I think that helps with FOIA requests, if I remember. And I think that's important for Mr. Campbell to get through FOIA requests and easier. So I'm not for striking the entire $29,000 line item there, but $25,000 of it, yes.
Would you state your motion, please?
Oh, I thought I had, I'm sorry.
There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. My wife says I'm around, so. I make the motion that council remove the $25,000 line item from the ZenCity software.
Second.
Motion from Councilmember Ruth with a second from Councilmember O'Rear to remove the $25,000 line item for ZenCity software. Discussion? Councilmember Rochette.
I concur. I don't see the value. You can log into, everyone has Facebook now, and readily available at your fingertips are all the opinions you'd ever want to read, good, bad, or otherwise, and it's absolutely free. There's one site for the city residents that has over 30,000 members. I don't think all of them live within the city, but the ones that speak up will tell you that they do, and it's absolutely free. Mostly what I've seen from ZenCity is a lot of word games, and it always makes everything look happy and shiny, and that everybody thinks the world of everything going on in the city, but we know that's not true. And I just don't think that it fairly represents both, their pleasure and displeasure. And I I don't know if it's a software issue, if it's not pulling enough from people, if people aren't logging in to that particular thing to make their voice known, but whatever it is, I don't feel that it's been worth its value, and so I'm in favor of dropping that $25,000 expenditure and putting it somewhere where we can use it better.
Councilmember O'Leary?
I would absolutely be in favor. If I could vote 7 times, I'd vote 7 times to get rid of this. Because I first heard of ZenCity through a FOIA request, and obviously ZenCity tracks things, and if administrators to certain Facebook pages give access to that, they will track everything in private Facebook groups and anywhere else. And that was what was trying to happen. The administrator for that site refused, citing the fact that if the citizenry found out that there was a tracking or monitoring program inside of that page, it would absolutely stifle speech and probably have everyone leave that. So I don't see any real purpose in ZenCity, but I'm with Councilman Roof about making it easier for Justin to do FOIA requests by keeping the other, but I would absolutely strike 25,000. Thank you.
Councilmember Hutchins?
Mr. Cressler, do we have any contractual agreement with them that we would have to?
No, it's a year-to-year contract. We are obligated to them through November, because when we initially signed the contract, it was in November. So it would renew again in November, so we would have a few months where we would have to pay for the service, because we can't cancel the contract in the middle of the term.
I was initially very enthusiastic about ZenCity when we first discussed this and approved it. I have been very disappointed in the actual results we've gotten from it over the last several years. A lot of data that we've gotten from them is counter to what we actually know is happening. And I think that's because not enough of the feedback is being perceived or input into their system. So I am very much in favor of taking this out of our budget.
Administrator Gracely, can you share with council what your reasons were for wanting to keep it for just a little while longer, please?
So one thing we haven't been able to use yet, at least not to the capability that exists within that software, is what is called the public engagement platform. And my thought in keeping it in the budget was this downtown revitalization project that's going to be happening very soon. It would allow us to push out information to the people who visit the site and want to have information provided to them where construction is occurring, the progress that we're making, how much longer is this street going to be under construction, those types of things. Of course, we'll convey all of that directly with business owners because they'll be the most impacted, but it's very difficult to convey that to an entire population of Simpsonville. And so it would make that project, I think, more transparent. Nobody could say the city didn't make us aware of this, because we do have this tool, and if people will just go on and log on to it, then they could get push notifications through their email with weekly updates on the progress of that project. And so, it's certainly a council decision about what you want to do. I just don't think we've had an opportunity to get what is probably the most valuable use of that product out of it yet. But we're coming close to, starting that project, and I think there would be value in that.
Thank you. Councilmember Roof?
I would say, since we do have it until November, we would still be able to use those services while we are doing, and I know they keep saying when we're going to start the streets, but I'm hoping.
It's a moving target.
Yeah, but at least with the building and the park and those type of announcements, we would still be able to use that for a few months. And I get what you're saying. I get it. I see it both ways. I was hesitant to vote for it last time, and I think just with the data that I've seen, it's just, and then we're not even part of we're not really part of Facebook groups that we want to be part of, that we need that data because they won't let us. And if I had known that going into it, I probably would have.
That was a big disappointment for us too, because we just assumed we would be able to have all of that information go through the software. And unfortunately, as Councilmember O'Rear said, we did not have any success with the administrators at Simpsonville residents to allow for ZenCity to track that. And it would have been nice, it would have been really nice to have that. So what they're tracking now are comments regarding Simpsonville on Fox Carolina, Facebook, WYFF, other organizations that maybe put information out. Our own Discover Simpsonville, where we put information on social media. Like I said, it's not a complete picture, certainly not a complete picture, and it's really unfortunate. Because, the reason that we found this software and talked to the company and had the presentation made to council is because a few years ago, this body said, we need to communicate better with the public. And it's very difficult to do, because the public has to participate in that communication too. It has to be a two-way street. And so the software is only as good as the participation we get in it. And that's why it was very disappointing that we weren't able to access the largest social media group out there that specifically targets this area. But anyway, of course we'll do whatever council directs us to do. And that's what we try to do when we brought this product forward. And so if the decision of council is to remove it, then we'll do the best we can with our own social media to get information out to the public.
Councilmember Roche.
I'd like to make the most of the resources that we already have in place. We have a great public relations official, and we have a city website. And I feel like our city website could use some juice. So I would be in favor of moving some of this money to improving our city website and making it a more user-friendly, interactive type of platform. I say that because I get questions all the time through email, text, phone calls, asking me questions that they could find if they just type www.simpsonville.com. And so I think a campaign to get people directed toward the website would be helpful. And then the website to actually have the updates like you're talking about for the downtown, projects that are coming up, the traffic updates, maybe an update daily. I mean, all the news stations give an update daily, when you get in your car, what can you expect to find on this road or that road? Something interactive, something that they could link to that would even pop a widget up at the bottom of their screen. This is what's being done today in City Park. This is what's being done today on the municipal building. They like the information, they just need to go to a place for it. ZenCity didn't do any of that, but I feel like our website could, and that seems to be the logical place where we should be driving citizens, taxpayers that want to know what's going on. So, I don't know, maybe that's something to think about. We could redirect some funds, and Justin's not going to be happy with me giving him more work.
He will be.
He will? Okay.
If I may.
Enthused, then that makes it all the better.
So if I may, I'm glad you went there. I did not prompt Councilmember Roche to do this, but we do have a proposal from a company called Ghost Marketing to completely overhaul our website. Right now, we're with MuniCode for the website, and it's a very stagnant, not very interesting looking product that we get. It has the information on it, but there are certain things it does not do. Ghost Marketing did a website for our art center for us. It was a much smaller expense because it's a much smaller website. But it does provide a place for people to go and get information about what's happening with the art center. It links to the studio tenants, and it's been a very valuable resource. So I've had this proposal from Ghost Marketing, and I didn't have anywhere to put it in the budget. It is $24,000 for year one. There's also $24,000 for year two, so we would have to fund it again next year. But after that, it's our product, and Justin would be able to change content and do all of that. So it would be an even trade if we wanted to fund that proposal. They're an excellent company. They did wonderful work for us on the Art Center website, and I know that he would be unbelievably excited to be able to go ahead and do that. We were going to just kick the can down the road a little bit longer, but this seems like a really good trade-off because, we're required to have a balanced budget, meaning the expenditures have to meet the revenues. And so I would have to find somewhere to put that money anyway, and we could just move it. I could just take ZenCity out of the administrative detailed budget and incorporate Ghost Marketing into that.
So I guess I make a motion to amend.
You make a motion to amend the motion on the floor to redirect that money to Ghost Marketing. Okay, so we have a motion from Councilmember Roche to amend the motion that's on the floor. So the amended motion would be to
End our funding to ZenCity and replace it with Ghost Marketing.
right. That they take the $25,000 from ZenCity out of the budget and redirect that money into the budget for Ghost Marketing. So that's the motion. Do we have a second?
Second. Wonder how that vote's going to go.
I have a motion from Councilmember Roche, and I think I heard Councilmember Pinkerton is the first one in there with the race. So is there discussion on that amendment? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed signify by saying no. That motion to amend carries 7-0.
You gotta know.
Oh, no. So we have one no. I'm sorry, I missed that, Councilmember Roop. So we have the motion carries 6-1 with Councilmember Roop voting no. So the amended motion now before this body is to remove the line item in the budget for ZenCity and redirect that funds into a new line item for Ghost Marketing. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes. All opposed signify by saying no.
No.
The motion is carries by a vote of 6-1 with Councilmember Root voting no. All right, before we go to adjourn, we have an item on the agenda to go into executive
Mr.
session.
Mayor, we didn't have first reading of the budget. There was no vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
That's right, we were working on a subsidiary motion on changing the budget. Were you done with your presentation?
Yes, unless anyone has any other questions.
Okay. Councilmember Pinkerton.
I'll try to make it short. And your health insurance, are you required to have workers' comp for your employees?
Workers' comp, yes, we are required, and that is handled through the Municipal Association's risk program.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's not part of our health insurance. It's a separate policy. We have tort liability and workers' comp through the Municipal Association.
And with workers' comp, there's generally opportunities to lower your workers' comp rate based on safety records. I'm assuming we have a fairly good safety record within our workers.
We do. Our workers' comp has where you see the increase in the budget on the insurance is our general liability insurance has increased, and that's been statewide because people are litigious, lawsuits cost more to defend. And so everybody has seen an increase in their general liability. So we use the Municipal Association's programs to cover general liability, tort, and workers' comp.
On the
And we
stormwater,
do, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
We do have a safety committee that meets.
Yes.
There's a representative from each department, and we try to have those meetings so that they can bring forward any concerns they might have about safety to the Human Resources Director.
stormwater fund, I know we had this discussion, but with the amount of money placed in there can be used for stormwater issues. Who would have to bring up an issue in order for it to get funded? Is this something Public Works brings to the table that anybody can bring to the table?
We would not spend any money out of that fund without council approval.
I know, but who can bring up?
I would think it would initiate if you all saw something that you wanted to put on the agenda, or if Public Works and I had something that we thought was a good use for the funding, we could present that to council for a vote. So it would come from internal. It would either come from you all or from staff.
But even at that point, somebody could present something, but it may be $1 million and not $250,000. So it's gonna have to go through some estimate and then come back for approval.
Correct. And well, we would not bring it forward for council action unless we had an estimate in place.
Okay. And back to GreenLink. Do we have a contract with GreenLink as we requested? And do we have a board member placement in place with GreenLink?
So we do not have an I cannot talk tonight. We do not have an intergovernmental agreement that has been presented to us yet from GreenLink. The reason is that they had to go back to their original charter to make any changes. And when they did that, they discovered that there were a lot of deficiencies in that original charter. So their attorney is having to basically redo everything. And so they are working on getting that done, doing the intergovernmental agreements that will go out to all of their funding partners, not just us, it would be everybody. And then we will, council would have to take action on approving that intergovernmental agreement when it is ready to be presented.
And the board member?
That is part of this whole changing up the original charter and all of the guidelines that they work by. So they haven't said no to a board member. I mean, they're the ones who brought that up, that, you know, the city, either Simpsonville or Malden could have a seat on the board. I think they intend to make good on that. They just have more legal work to do before they're able to incorporate that into their operating procedures and then present us with the intergovernmental agreement, which would include that position on the board.
Do you think we'll have that resolved before budget day one for the next budget?
I'm not sure if we will. I think they're working as quickly as they can with their attorney on it. It's a really complicated thing because GreenLink itself is a very complicated system. It started as Greenville Transit Authority and then GreenLink, and then the city of Greenville took it from the county and the county provides some funding. It got very convoluted from its initial inception. And so now they're having to figure all of this out and basically rewrite everything. I can't promise you, and they haven't promised me that it would be ready to present before July 1. And of course, then when it is presented, you all still have to take action on it. So it only requires one vote, but it would still need to go to committee of the whole and then to council for approval before I could sign it. I would anticipate soon thereafter, if it's not ready by July 1, it would not be far into the budget year before that would be ready.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Roche.
I'm throwing this out here as something I'd like to see happen. It's not gonna happen in this budget, but I would like to put a bug in your ear. I love that the resurfacing budget was increased. But what I'm seeing more and more is that we're getting further and further behind on our city streets instead of ahead of the curve. And I think the only way that that's actually going to happen is if we have at least a small system of equipment of our own, rather than relying on the county, rather than relying on King, contracting that stuff out. And I know that's expensive, but if we can spend $1 million on a fire truck, I feel like the city's in a position that we could spend the money for the roads, the streets, because it's important to the people. If there's one thing that everybody agrees on, we don't like the condition of the city streets. And I appreciate the process of, the way that Public Works handles that and grades each one and puts it on a schedule if it requires paving. But only able to do 7, when the need is 20. I'm thinking too that the crumbling pavement, how it's ending up in the sewer system, some of the neighborhoods, that's not helping our sewers or our storm drainage at all. I would like to see in a future budget, I may or may not still be on council when it happens, but I'd like to see us get paving equipment that would allow us to take care of our streets instead of being in line, for contracted services, instead of waiting on the county to, be available. I think Simpsonville's population has grown, our infrastructure needs to grow as well, and, they're paying the tax. I think that the citizens deserve good streets throughout the neighborhood and inside the city. Just putting that out there.
Thank you.
Councilman Hutchins.
I'd like to follow up with a couple of things here. First with Councilmember Pinkerton's response about Green Lane. Will bus service be impacted while all this wrangling is going on?
No, not at all.
And then with Councilmember O'Shea's comments about the streets and resurfacing, I would like to see that increased and more streets addressed, but I also would like to see the process become more transparent. So all of us and all the citizens can see how the streets are selected and what the conditions are to determine that. I know I've reviewed the list a while back, and in every street listed there, I would have a hard time determining by looking at that list as to which streets were in disrepair and which weren't. So more information there or more transparency, I think, would be good in that process. On the budget, storm capital fund, if we were to collect impact fees, would that be a vehicle for funding this stormwater capital fund?
It would be, and this council would have the authority to do that. Of course, like with any increases in taxes or new fees, I think, there would be some people who would not be very happy about that, but that is an option for you to consider.
But there are costs involved in stormwater issues, and I think people need to realize that the development set to lead that should, share in the cost. The $1,000 discretionary fund for each ward, is that a use it or lose it proposition, or?
If it's not spent by June 30th of next year, it would just go into general fund balance. It's not cumulative. I think somebody else asked me that, and no, it wouldn't be, because we would have to establish a separate fund for it to be cumulative, so yeah.
And we had a discussion, I think a verbal commitment a while back about applying for Tree City status.
We are doing that, we're in the process right now.
And is there any budgetary requirements there?
No, we are fortunate to have an arborist on our staff, so we don't have to hire any kind of outside consultant. For those of you who don't know, Public Works Director Andy West is a certified arborist. He wears many hats, and so he is working on the application for Tree City designation right now. The last thing that we would have to do in order to comply is a proclamation for Arbor Day, which I would suggest we do at the tree lighting every year. That's what we did in Travelers Rest, and it works out great because you have a captive audience. It's a short proclamation, so it raises awareness about the significance of Arbor Day and the importance of trees. And so we would hopefully attain that status just after the first of the year. That would be the last action we would need to take. There are steps that we have to go through, certain amount of money being spent per capita on trees or maintenance of trees, establishing an arborist or a tree committee, and then the Arbor Day proclamation. And I think there's one other thing. Am I missing something, Andy? Yeah, it's hard to remember everything because it's been a long time since I've gone through this process. But yes, I would anticipate that being the final action that we would do this calendar year, and we would get the designation soon thereafter, which would time out perfectly with the new park.
There's a $2 per capita requirement
Yes.
on urban forestry. That's right.
Yes.
I just want to say that, again, this budget is excellent. You and the staff have done a great job with this as usual. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much for saying that. And I need to thank our finance director because she makes this process so much easier for me. And all of the department heads as well, because they go through their worksheets while Director Farino and I are working on revenue projections, and then she plugs all of those numbers in, and we know there's always a gap between revenues and, what everyone's asking for. And so then we go back to the department heads and work with them on making the budget balance. And they all do a wonderful job of helping that process.
Councilmember Weir.
Man, when you speak late in the process, a lot of people steal your thunder. That's okay. I want to thank Director Farino for sending me this itemized thing. That helped me a tremendous amount, and I forwarded it off. Thank Diana for sitting down with me yesterday and explaining a lot. She answered most of my questions. Want to piggyback on a couple of things. Green Link, Councilmember Pinkerton, there was a third prong to the promises there. And one was the adjustment of some of the stops to incorporate more paratransit. So I don't want that to get lost in the shuffle. My example was the new municipal complex, putting a stop there, that would automatically expand, but I think there's ways we can expand the paratransit service by simply shifting stops around. I just didn't want to get lost in the shuffle of the other things that are extremely important. I agree with Councilmember Roche. I think it's a fantastic idea. Anytime you can keep something in-house, over time, it's going to be much more cost efficient. So that kind of segues into something I wanted to ask about the budget. There's a lot, not a lot, but several things that would be considered vendor items, and some of the costs. I'm not hip on how much uniforms and things would normally cost, but I just wanted to, make sure we're going through the proper channels and getting several different quotes from several vendors before we settle on something. And before a council member group wants to choke me, I was going to ask him about his sidewalk. I just want to see if we can preserve as many trees as possible on that. I know my neighbors across the road at Redfern are going to really enjoy that. I know they appreciate his efforts in getting that done. I know he's been working on that for them. Those are good folks over there, so I know they'll really use it, so the money will be well spent there. And Councilmember Hutchings, I'm all with you on the impact fees. I think it's a fantastic way to fund stormwater and other infrastructure issues that we see that doesn't affect the taxpayers directly. But I do want to appreciate everyone, all the department heads, all their time they put into this budget. I got tired of reading it all, so I couldn't imagine the effort to actually put it together. But I appreciate everybody doing that, and it does look really, really, this city looks fiscally in great shape right now, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Roche.
One really quick question. Since we do have verbal promises from Green Link and we approved that based on those verbal promises, and we have yet to really see anything come of that, is there anything preventing council from pulling back the funding at this point if they don't deliver on their end?
So it's a 1-year commitment. So I would say, I think the only option, if they don't deliver that before we have this budget discussion again next year, then certainly, I think you just reevaluate your commitment to fund that. I don't think we could pull it back at this point because we've committed to them that we would keep the route open. And of course, Malden is part of that equation too, so we would be disrupting service in Malden or affecting their budget negatively, because they would have to decide, are we going to make up the difference? Because the two, municipalities are working together to fund this route. But I would say, the good thing about this request to fund 601, and while we work out all of these details, is that it is just a year-by-year commitment on the city's part.
Would you reach out to them? I feel like you're already going to, and let them know that those things
Yes.
that were verbally promised are really important.
Yes, we've had some email correspondence, and I've told them, it's really important that we get these issues resolved.
Council. Just as a point of clarification on something that Councilmember Hutchings mentioned, is that the stormwater impact fee would be something that would be paid by each property owner.
Correct.
Across the city.
Correct.
And is that what you were asking about, Councilmember Hutchings, or were you really referring more to a new construction fee? I can't remember what the term for that is, where somebody has to pay when they're doing new construction.
Well, it would be an impact
It's
fee.
an impact fee.
So which one?
And I was actually referring to new construction.
New construction, okay, I just wanted to be clear on which
Well,
one you
you
were.
know, I will say that new construction is held to a higher standard, and you all don't know, but I'm working on bringing forth an ordinance that would require that every new development meet the 100-year storm standard. We're at 25 years, so it's only going to increase the cost that they already have to pay for stormwater. You know, stormwater that's managed on the site doesn't impact other property owners. I think most of our stormwater issues are in the older neighborhoods where that infrastructure was not required to be put in at the time because those water quality standards were not in place on the federal level. So you all can, discuss whatever you want to discuss, but I think it would be unfair to developers to then put the burden of paying for stormwater citywide on their development as an impact fee. But that's a discussion for another time. It's not part of this budget.
Let me be very clear, I'm not lobbying for an impact fee for developers, I'm just bringing up the issue
Yes.
that if we were to go in that direction at some point in time, would this fund be the place where
This would be where that revenue would be directed. Yes, sir.
Any further discussion? On the motion to approve the first reading of the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed signify by saying no. The motion carries by a vote of 7-0. Now we have reached that item on the agenda about executive session. At this time, we are considering going into executive session. A motion is in order. Councilmember Roche.
Mayor, I move that council approve the motion to go into executive session to discuss a personnel matter related to the fire department. Upon leaving executive session, council may take action on that.
I have a motion from Councilmember Roche with a second from Councilmember Roop. At this time, Simpsonville City Council will be going into executive session to discuss a personnel matter related to the fire department. While we are in executive session, we are not allowed to take any votes other than we can vote to adjourn from that meeting. So we may not come back up to adjourn the meeting if we don't have anything to act on. If we do have something that needs action, it will take place in open session. We will return to council chambers to do that. And this announcement should satisfy the state law requirement that I announce our purpose for going into executive session. We are now in executive session. Simpsonville City Council has now returned to public session. Council, I move that we appoint Harold Nichols as the full-time fire chief for the city of Simpsonville. I have a motion from the mayor with a round of seconds. I don't even know who was first there. We'll call it Councilmember Roche for the record, but thank you all. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes. All opposed signify by saying no. The motion carries by a vote of 7-0. And with that, that concludes all the items on our agenda. If there is no objection, we will stand adjourned.